Is heavy from Ogden Avenue to the Wyndham
Trust
Freeway.
and
There was a
believe.
right lane closure on the ramp to westbound 88. It has reopened, so things are improving, but there's still a bit of residual congestion. You see heavy traffic on the outbound Stevenson from the Des Plaines River Bridge to Tri-State. A crash quickly cleared out of right lane. It's now a 22-minute trip time from DuSable Lakeshore Drive to the Veterans Memorial Tollway. Inbound also 22. It's a little congested approaching the Rhine with a heavy ramp to the inbound Rhine. Inbound Rhine traffic's bunching up just.
So how does it sound?
It's 12 minutes from 95th. Outbound 11.
Reverend Yuri sounds good on our end.
Okay, great.
59 and Marquette, and some ramps set to reopen too. That's traffic. I'm Telemonte.
Hey, where's Hal Sparks? I'm not sure where he is now, but I know where you can find him Saturdays at 11. He'll be right here on WCPT 820 for the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
You know when you order a new video game, or a golf club, or a blender, and then it arrives at your door, you get a little thrill. Imagine how much more thrilling it is when you order a new car. With Nissan at home, you can shop for the perfect ride and order it without ever having to go anywhere. Sure beats a golf club or a blender. Buy a new car entirely online with Nissan
Hey,
at home.
Linda and
Delivered
Andre
direct
and
to your
Daryl,
door
how you
to
doing, everybody?
The
Please
rail
like
starts
and
here.
share, like and share, like and
Services
subscribe
may vary, participating
on
dealers subject to applicable law. See
YouTube.
dealer for details.
Please,
This
please,
is Joan
please.
Esposito.
We're going to be
Here at
talking about, of
WCPT,
course,
we love
um,
pets so much that we're spotlighting
the
an
Rittenhouse
adoptable, adorable
verdict.
dog or cat
What do you think
every
about
month.
that? Were you
So many
surprised by
deserving
it?
pets are waiting for their forever home.
Hope you were
We've
not.
partnered with community shelters and our sponsors, Love for
So we
Dogs,
will
Pet Grooming,
see.
and Mark
Were you
Drugs,
surprised
to
by it,
talk about why
Pastor?
rescue is best. It's all on Joan Esposito Live, local
Not
and
at all.
progressive.
Oh,
See
okay.
our current adoptable at WCPT820.com.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
30 seconds.
Eric Grant invites you to the family meeting every Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. for conversations like you'd have at a family barbecue. And you never know.
10.
Drop by on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
We can change the world, change the world. We can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It is Thanksgiving week. I'm Santita. It is a joy to be with you today. Call me at 773-763-9278. Where are you calling? WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I want to hear your thoughts about the Rittenhouse verdict. What do you think about that? And we're going to be wrapping up the Ahmaud Arbery case today. They call it the killing trial. We call it the murder trial because he was murdered. And that is actually the charge. So what do you think is going to happen with Mrs. McMichael and Mr. Bryan? What do you think is going to happen? Call me at 773-763-9278. And also, let me know what you think of what happened were you surprised at all by the verdict in the Rittenhouse case? He was exonerated. Or was he just found not guilty? You tell me what your thoughts are. Call 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. We're going to have a tremendous panel, and the only seat that's not filled is the one that's filled by you. So I want you to call me at 773-763-9278. Of course, we're going to be getting some good news from Pastor Tom Yuri. And then we're going to get some updating on our Thanksgiving protocols because it's on Thursday, everybody. It's Thursday. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Everybody, please go to the Santita Jackson Show page, the Santita Jackson Show channel on YouTube, that channel, and tune in over there. And then you can also meet us over on Facebook on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. Hey, Paula, how you doing? And you said it's Linear Bob. You say it's open season on progressive protesters. It sent quite a chilling signal, and we're going to talk about that on the Santita Jackson Show today. But in the meantime, let's get some of these headlines out the way. Chicago, a high of 35 degrees. It will be sunny. Minneapolis, Minnesota, we are going to have 33 degrees. It's going to be partly cloudy, a beautiful day. And wow, what happened in sports? Well, the Bears fell to the Ravens at the last couple of minutes of the game. Unbelievable. 16 Ravens, the Bears 13, and the Vikings, well, they were triumphant over the Packers 34-31, but it was a squeaker, everybody. And in the NBA, whoa, pshaw. How often does this happen? LeBron James was ejected from a game along with the Pistons' Isaiah Stewart. There was some contact between LeBron James and Mr. Stewart that resulted in a cut over Mr. Stewart's eye. It got contentious, and they were both thrown out the game. What do you think about that, everybody? What do you think? They were both thrown out the game. And in more NBA news, of course, the Bulls were triumphant. Not of course, but we're glad they were triumphant over the Knicks 109-103. And the Timberwolves will be playing the Pelicans tonight. In hockey, the Lightning, well, they were triumphant over the Wild 5-4, and Chicago won over the Canucks 1-0. Shut out, everybody. Well, 5 people, sadly, tragically, were killed last evening. 5 were killed and 40 were injured as a vehicle, an SUV, was driven into a Christmas parade yesterday in Waukesha, Wisconsin. What do you think about that, everybody? A person of interest is being held, but what do you think happened there? Of course, the city of Wisconsin, the city of Waukesha, released this statement saying, in part, these numbers may change as we collect additional information. Many people have been self-transported to local hospitals, everybody. Got to pray for them and find out what happened, because it just seems very, very odd, very odd. This car plowed into this parade, this Christmas parade. People really thought that they were moving towards something more beautiful in this Christmas season, and something this horrific happened. God bless them. Well, saddening, infuriating, and utterly unsurprising, according to those progressives who saw the exoneration, the acquittal of Kyle Rittenhouse. Racial justice advocates, according to this Common Dreams report, reacted with outrage and a complete lack of surprise Friday after a Kenosha, Wisconsin jury found Illinois teenager Kyle Rittenhouse not guilty on all charges for killing 2 men and wounding a third during a 2020 protest that against the police shooting of Jacob Blake. He has been lost in all of this, with some observers asserting that the verdict encourages vigilante attacks on demonstrators. What do you think about that, everybody? Call me at 773-763-9278. And what about this? Kyle Rittenhouse is on track to get at least 3 internships from Republican congresspersons. That's right, Congressman Madison Cawthorn, Representative Matt Gaetz, and Representative Paul Gosar. Yes, that Gosar, who was censured last week for posting a cartoon, if you will, of him killing AOC, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez out of New York. In fact, Congressman Gosar said that he would arm wrestle Congressman Gaetz to get dibs on Kyle as an intern. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Senate Democrats will try to negotiate with moderate Democrats, with corporatist Democrats, everybody, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, to address their disagreements on the size and scope of President Joe Biden's economic package as it heads to the Senate. What do you think about that? If you and your families are fully vaccinated, we're going to have to ask Dr. Deb about this. Dr. Fauci said it's okay for you to ditch the masks this holiday season when you're around each other. What do you think as we see this spike in breakthrough cases? Do you think that's safe? The FDA is expected to approve the Pfizer and Merck antiviral pills, but they're warning that that's not a silver bullet. But is there one? Everybody. So what about Facebook? Very interesting story. It turns out their race-blind practices around hate speech come at the expense of Black users, according to new documents. Pastor Todd Yeary, we need some good news today. Happy Thanksgiving, first of all. Wishing you and your family all of our love and blessings in this beautiful season.
Well, same to you, Santita. Good morning. I need a moment to catch my breath. You covered so much news. I'm exhausted. So, hey, let me tell you. So I'm not going to pick any fights over the football game. We're going to leave that where it is. But that basketball game was a brawl for real. They were not. Mr. Stewart was not having any of it. So LeBron had to be tossed because he did a little swinging. They called it a dirty blow. But, you know, there's a whole lot going on. We've been taking a lot of blows. It seems like we're all in the fight for our very lives as we get ready for Thanksgiving week. But I hope everybody's well and excited. So I want to get right down to it. Good morning, Chicago. Good morning, Twin Cities. Come on, it's me. You know, if it's me, it's Monday. It's time to get up, get moving, put your feet on the floor, feel that child coming back at you. Take a deep breath of life and appreciate that, baby, you still in the game. So go ahead, get that morning Joe going, get that morning beverage, that tea, that juice, whatever makes you work. Drink that water. Drink that water. You got some meat coming up. Don't play. And let's go ahead and get ready for an absolutely fantabulous week. I want to talk to you. Come on, you already know it. I don't have to forecast it. I need to talk to you about gratitude. Gratitude. Gratitude is the key to living every day as if it's Thanksgiving. Very often we treat our lives as if we have to look forward to holidays to make exceptions about mindset. But the truth of the matter is it's our mindset that helps us to appreciate not only the holidays, but also the troubling days. The reason I want to raise that is because Thursday is still 3 days out. We can't waste 3 days waiting to get to Thursday and miss the window of opportunity to really kind of get excited about this gift of life. I get it. Life comes with troubles and challenges and disappointments. We hear the news. We almost want to go somewhere and hide or do other things, but it's too early to be, kind of spiking that morning beverage. But here's how you get past the things that are tough to kind of handle. Is you appreciate and you put things in perspective. And I want to talk to you about the power of just being grateful in spite of the challenges, because it's an indication that you have right focus. You're not going to get emotionally out of whack because things don't necessarily go the way you expected. But it also helps you to dig deep and focus on the things you can control. I want to mention something to you as we talked this morning in a book written a few years ago called Commit to Win. Heidi Reeder kind of talked about the 4 variables of commitment being treasures, troubles, contributions, and choices. Treasures, troubles, contributions, and choices. And I want to change that a bit. It's not commitment. It's not merely commitment, but gratitude includes all of that. You can be grateful. You should be grateful for your treasures. Absolutely. For your troubles? Well, yes, because they're making you stronger. They're giving you some strength that you're going to need going forward. Your contributions, the things you have achieved, and your choices, the decisions, good, bad, or indifferent, that you have made. I need to say to you that Thursday's coming, but don't wait for Thursday. I need you to be grateful today because there are great things already happening for you. And here's where I would invoke a little help from Tremaine. Let me get Tremaine in here. God has not promised us sunshine. That's not how it's supposed to be. But a little rain helps me appreciate the good times. Be grateful. Be grateful today. Don't wait. You can make Thanksgiving today. You can have Thanksgiving all week long. Be grateful, because remember, gratitude includes those 4 things: treasures, troubles, contributions, and choices, and they all make you who you are, and that, simply put, is special. So go be the gift to the world that you were created to be. Go ahead and change it and be grateful. I'm grateful for you. I'm rooting for you, and I can't wait to see what you're going to achieve. Have a great day.
Blessings to you, Pastor Todd Yeary. Douglas Memorial Community Church in Baltimore, Maryland. Treasures, troubles, contributions, and choices. Thank you so much for that word today. We've got Dr. Deborah Holden. You know what? It is time for the holiday, everybody. We are, 3 days away from Thanksgiving, the most heavily traveled holiday of the year. In fact, they just had a big scare at the nation's busiest airport. Thankfully, no one was hurt. But what do you think? What about the holidays? Dr. Deborah Holden, talk to us. What message do you want to give us today?
Hey, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
I like that message. I love it. I like the message of gratitude. I think a couple things. I believe in the power of preparation. And I've been telling people the same way. Remember when we had voting? And I said, plan your vote and then vote your plans. Well, I'm telling people to plan that holiday and then execute that holiday plan. So I want people to get prepared. And the first thing you need to do is prepare your guests. Have conversations with people. Do you have a house? Because, everybody had, in my family, it was our house, one of my aunt's houses, where everybody would go for every holiday. If we had dinner at my house, the after party was at hers and vice versa. And I could bring friends. When I was in college, because I went to college in Baltimore, my whole family lived in the D.C. area. Anybody didn't have a place to go for a holiday or couldn't make it home, they would go home with me. Well, is that how your house is operating this year? Can people bring people? Do you want to know the vaccination or the COVID status of people? I think this is a great time to have these conversations with people. I don't think there's anything wrong with asking somebody to get vaccinated. And I've asked plenty of people to get vaccinated. The reason that has worked for me is because I have space for their answer, whether it be yes or no. I have space for it. So have your guests be prepared. Have all those conversations, set the ground rules. You should have a real honest reckoning with safely how many people can we accommodate in the house. Before this pandemic, it was like, who cares? The more the merrier. You wanted people jam-packed in, every seat in the house taken, every surface that could be activated for a table was activated, but that's just not wise, in the midst of a pandemic that is spread through the air, and through droplets. So prepare your guests and then prepare your space.
Well, let me ask you
make sure
this.
that everything is clean.
But because I want you to get right back to that, but you just mentioned vaccines, and Dr. Fauci said this past weekend on CNN, actually yesterday, that if you and your family members are fully vaccinated, that it's okay for you to ditch the masks this holiday season when you're around each other. He said that's what he's going to do with his family. What do you think about that? Because we're hearing, he says that, but then on the other hand, we're being told that in these public spaces, which effectively your home becomes when you have all these other people in it, right? That you still need to be physically distanced. You still need to wear masks. Of course, not when you're wearing your food, but not when you're eating your food. But it's like we're getting different messages as we're seeing more and more the need for more and more boosters. In Israel, they need 4 boosters, which means, that the vaccines wane. And then we're seeing Pfizer and Merck, is it? They are seeking emergency use authorization of their therapeutics. It's all very confusing, Dr. Deb. Before we get to cleaning, what should we wear masks at home, whether fully vaccinated or not, if you know that people are COVID-19 negative? What should we do? How should we do this? He just told us that we can ditch our masks if we're vaccinated.
Well, I differ with my many of my colleagues on this, and I will loosely call Dr. Fauci my colleague, because here's the reality: what we had hoped is that the vaccine would prevent people from spreading COVID-19, and we now know that that's not the case. I think the messaging that if everybody's vaccinated, everybody can be unmasked is a part of this emphasis and push to get as many people vaccinated as possible, right? It's like dangling. Who knew the big carrot that everybody would want to have in front of them is to be able to live in a world where they don't have to have a mask on when they're around other people, right? Like, could you have imagined 3 years ago that would be the thing that you would be, willing to do anything for, right? And so I think that's what that is about. And the reality of it is, and my colleagues here, we just disagree. Everybody here keeps saying the vaccine is our best and strongest line of defense against this pandemic. And they keep saying that. And I'm like, what are y'all basing that on? Like, I don't disagree that the vaccine will be important. I don't disagree that it has tremendous value in this, fight against this virus and this pandemic. But it is by no means the thing that's going to get us out of it. If we got everybody on the planet right now vaccinated with the vaccines that we have available, we are still going to see COVID spread. We're still going to see hospitalizations. We're still going to see deaths. The numbers will be smaller, but the numbers won't change. And if everybody gets vaccinated with the vaccines that we have right now and goes back to business as usual, and people ditch the mask and everybody goes back to work, and every, concert, comedy show, the basketball game, and all those things go on like normal, we're going to see really high numbers of cases and all of those other things that come with cases, cases of hospitalizations and deaths. So it's a debate right now that I think we need to be having. Is there value in the vaccination? Absolutely. And I tell this to people all the time. You'd much rather, if you were going to contract COVID, you'd much rather be vaccinated than not. The other thing that we don't talk about enough is that for a lot of people with long COVID, the vaccine seems to help them. The vaccine looks like it's helping people's bodies repair and restore itself from some of the long-term side effects of long-term COVID or long-haul COVID. So there's just all of these added benefits that the vaccine brings. And I 100% believe that the vaccine will do way more good than harm. And I do believe that it's safe and effective. But it doesn't stop people from spreading COVID. So saying if
you're among the few. You're among the few in your position who actually say that, right?
Yeah. It's like I just don't like that statement because it implies something that isn't true.
And
now,
you know what?
If you say everybody's vaccinated, so the likelihood of you having a high viral load and viral shedding and all that is low. And so we are choosing to not mask up. Well, that's your business. But what's more important than somebody's COVID status, not their vaccination status, if your goal is to prevent spread.
But that's
what's the most important thing.
See, because we're looking at hyperbole. We've got the German health minister who said most Germans will be vaccinated, cured, or dead. I said, wow, is that the thing to say? Let me go to Denise. She has a question for you. She called in before we even got you on. Dr. Deb, so let me go to Denise.
Dr. Deb, good morning, Santita.
Hey.
I'm having it's like a complex dilemma. Dr. Deb, here's the deal. As an epidemiologist in the healthcare profession, is it wrong for me to ask my doctor whether or not he's been vaccinated? Or can I ask you, Dr. Deb, have you been vaccinated? Okay? Because my doctor comes he visits from VPA, Visiting Physicians Association. He comes into my house. Dr. Deb, he told me, he gave me a call months ago and told me that his medical assistant as well as himself we had tested positive for CV-19. And, Dr. Deb and Santita, I just, blew it off. I stroked it off and said, well, he's my doctor. He's going to, update his status and to the point where I'll be able to ask him, Doc, you been vaccinated? Or the medical assistants. Now it's gotten to the point where the city of Chicago, their employees, is mandated to be vaccinated. Mm-hmm. The inspector came, blew past me, and told me she's not going to enter my apartment because I didn't have my mask. Dr. Deb and Santita, I've not only been vaccinated, I got my booster 2 weeks ago Friday. Now,
so just very quickly, what's your question?
Sorry.
Because I've got about 30 seconds.
The question is that she's the inspector was telling me that she doesn't have to tell me whether or not she's vaccinated. Mm-hmm. It was mandated by the mayor. Where is the proof that mayor, has this mandated that I can allow you to come into my house without me having all these underlying conditions.
Mm-hmm.
So the messaging, what am I,
Then stay right there.
Underlining.
Miss Denise, stay right there. We're going to talk to you during the break. But that's part of the confusion, Dr. Deb. Because you've got Dr. Fauci saying, if you've been vaccinated, take off your masks, have a great time during the holiday season. And yet we're still being told that when we are in these public spaces, or when we're walking into spaces that are unfamiliar, we need to be masked up. It's like, what? And then, we all know that what you really need to, first you need to find out if you're positive or negative. Dr. Deb, I want you to speak to that during the break. And then, of course, I'm going to be taking your calls about the Rittenhouse verdict. What do you think about it? What do you think about it? I know you have a lot of thoughts. 773-763-9278. Let's talk about it on the Santita Jackson Show. Dr. Deb, you can speak to Miss Denise because you can hear her confusion. I'm confused too.
Yeah, it's a great question that she asked. And so here's my thing. I believe people absolutely have the right to ask people if they're vaccinated, especially if they're coming into your home. You do. And again, if somebody said, for your own protection, you can only know one thing about this person, I would want to know, are you COVID positive? That's what matters more to me than whether or not you're vaccinated. I want everybody to get vaccinated because I know in my heart vaccination is going to do them more good than harm. I just know that. I know that. And I know so many people who've gotten COVID and have had problems, and every single one of them said they wish that they had been vaccinated. Among the unvaccinated, actually, everybody that I know that's had a complicated COVID case was unvaccinated. Mm-hmm. They were either contracted COVID before a vaccine was available, or they contracted COVID since the vaccines have been available and they chose not to get vaccinated. I was with my one of my cousins, extended cousins, sort of like second cousin, once removed, over the weekend, and her ex-husband is a big-time conspiracy theorist. He's convinced that, vaccine magnetizes you and all this other kind of stuff. And he was a no, and he contracted COVID, gave it to both of their sons, and then he ended up in the hospital. He almost died. Mm-hmm. And he has recovered, but he has long-term respiratory issues.
But you know what? But I have a friend.
COVID symptoms.
But see, I have several friends who changed their diets, and for various and sundry reasons, they chose not to get vaccinated. For various and sundry, because a lot of people, quite frankly, came to this, particularly Black folks, came to this very late because they didn't feel comfortable, and most of us still don't. Most of us are saying, you know what, I got to do it because I've got to travel, I've got to work, and I just don't think that there's enough of an emphasis, as we were emphasizing last year, on good health, on healthfulness. I'm not saying that the vaccines are not important; they are, but I've seen some people really take another kind of approach, and they have been well. I'd like to see all of these options on the table, Dr. Deb, really, because one of the things that COVID has shown us is that we're really unhealthy.
From jump, I've got Hoffler, Senator Taylor, Dwight McKee, and Todd Rubbing you through.
Okay, I've got less than a minute, Dr. Deb.
Anyway, so to Miss Denise, 60. I'd like to ask you, anybody coming in your house, if they're vaccinated, and you have a right to say you can't come in here if you're not.
Even if they're from the city?
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Even if they're from government, you can say that.
Yes, but here's the problem. This becomes more of a divider for us. I would actually recommend that people not do that. That's your right. But I would recommend that people not do it. What's more important is if somebody's coming in your house. In my house, we don't wear shoes. So I make people wear booties, all the service people. And I had some of they don't have them. Mm-hmm. But you need to wear booties in my house or take your shoes off because we don't wear shoes. I don't bring outside into my home. And I make people wear a mask. That's it. Okay. The mask is going to be more important than the vaccination.
Change the world. Change the world. Change the world. We can change the world. change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Santita Jackson on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio. The voice of progressive Minnesota, 773-763-9278, 773-763 WCPT. What did you make of the acquittal of Kyle Rittenhouse? Saddening, infuriating, and utterly unsurprising. That is what some progressives have said. Racial justice advocates reacted with outrage, according to this Common Dreams report, and a complete lack of surprise Friday after a Kenosha, Wisconsin jury found Illinois teenager, that's right, he's 18 now, Kyle Rittenhouse, not guilty on all charges for killing two men, Anthony Huber, Joseph Rosenbaum, and seriously wounding a third, Gage Grosskreutz. We must remember, people died here. What do you think? And now you've got three prominent congresspersons who are fighting over the opportunity to offer him an internship. Wow. And mind you, these congressional internships are highly valued positions when you're in school. I mean, this is like a big deal. So what do you think about that, everybody? I want you to call me, text me at 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. I want your thoughts. And I promise you, Dr. Verholden will be back tomorrow. We'll have a little bit more time for her so that you can ask more questions, because I can hear you, Miss Denise. I heard your angst and that we're just getting a lot of different signals. But please wear your masks, be safe, and, find out if you're COVID positive or not. Do that. And please take care of yourselves, everybody. Before we get to Attorney C.K. Hoffler and Reverend Dr. Todd Urey, Esquire, Dwight McKee, and Wisconsin State Senator and Lieutenant Gubernatorial candidate Lena Taylor, let me go to you, Mama D. You had a thought or two about this Rittenhouse verdict. Your thoughts?
Yes, I did, and thank you for taking my call. First of all, my condolences to the survivors in the van attack. And, your brother, Jonathan, who's on my love list, by the way, often says we need to fix the problem, not fix the blame. And that's the choice that I think Americans are facing. Now, if you'll remember, I gave an unpopular progressive prediction after hearing the prosecutor's case. I said that his witnesses did more to help the defense of Kyle than it did to help the prosecution.
So were you surprised by the verdict?
No, I told you way back then, because I think people thought that I had it mixed up. I said, no, the prosecutor's witnesses, including the man that was shot, when he got cross-examining, he said, I pointed my gun at him. Yes, my gun was unregistered, and yes, I was in violation. And so all of the witnesses of the prosecution, I don't know what he was thinking, putting Kyle's best friend on the stand. But anyway,
but very quickly, your thoughts.
I said then, if I was on that jury, I would find him not guilty, but guilty of the lesser charges. But those two lesser charges were dropped, both of them. So no, I'm not surprised by this verdict. And if anybody watched the trial instead of just listening to what media said happened, they would have come to the same conclusion.
Absolutely.
It's not like what. So we got to be fair.
Okay, but you know what? I didn't, Mama D, I hear you, but I want to hear, I know CK is running, Attorney CK Hoffler is running this morning. She was about to catch a flight, and I wanted her to set the table for us in these next 7 minutes or so that we can hear your thoughts, because you said, look, an acquittal, it's not unfathomable. So talk to me. What happened on Friday? And should we have been surprised?
Santita. Well, we should not have been surprised. I mean, we talked about it on your show. And we talked about, I came at it for different reasons. I simply felt that based on the fact that the lesser included offenses were dismissed, and at that point only one, having to do with curfew. But when the second one having to do with the possession of an assault rifle, for lack of a better term, was dismissed, I felt, unfortunately, very confident that he would be acquitted across the board. We talked about this on your show, Santita. I felt sad and bad about it, but I felt it was important for us to brace ourselves and to be prepared for this outcome. And that really is very unfortunate. But the evidence that the prosecution presented in its case in chief was so completely confusing that you have to, when you have the burden of proof, as they do, beyond a reasonable doubt, present a clear, coherent picture of what happened and give that jury from the beginning and from the evidence that you get from every single witness a reason to vote in your favor. You have to give it to them. You cannot take any chances. Now, in closing, the prosecution was superb. They were superb. But, of course, that's a little bit too late after, a couple weeks of, or a week and about 10 days of confusing evidence. And the defense successfully poked holes in the prosecution's case. So I think, and by the way, the defense was not good in closing. Their presentation was not cohesive, but they had already laid the ground rules. The judge made it so that every bit of discretionary call was going to go in favor of the defense. So it was clear that he was defense-oriented. His judicial conduct, as I've said, was not appropriate in this case for so many reasons. So I was not at all surprised by the outcome. I was disheartened. I felt a sense of being kicked in the stomach, to be very frank, but I was not surprised. I had prepared myself and braced myself because that's how I saw the case from the inception. I hope that it does not send a signal to other vigilantes who simply want to break up protests, legitimate, important, significant protests in this country and in the world, by brandishing an assault weapon and shooting people. I hope that that is not the signal, and I think we have to work hard to ensure that that is not the message being sent to America, to these vigilante groups, to these right-wing organizations who wish to just stop protests on very, very significant issues of civil rights, human rights. And so I feel that this country has a lot of work to do, and we need to focus on that because the jury has spoken. And once the jury's spoken, there's very little you can do to undo what the jury has done. We have to live with it, and that's the bottom line.
Attorney C.K. Hoffler, she told us, I hate to say I told you so, but she did tell us so. And, we tried to kind of prepare you on this show for the possibility of this. Wisconsin State Senator Lena Taylor, you are a candidate for Lieutenant Governor of the great state of Wisconsin. And then we're praying for everyone in Wisconsin because of what happened in Waukesha last night. 5 people killed, 40 people injured at least. Many of them had to self-transport to area hospitals. We're certainly keeping all of you in our prayers, and we have no idea why this person took this SUV just 2 days after this stunning verdict and plowed into all of these people during a peaceful, beautiful Christmas parade. Where would you like to begin? The verdict? Waukesha? Oh.
I, of course, am going to start with Waukesha. It was, a beautiful event for someone to drive a car into people was beyond unfathomable. Just why would someone want to do such a thing?
That?
The number of people killed, the number of people injured, really just astounding. I know a elected official whose grandchild evidently was at the parade and injured, but glory be to God, was not killed. So my prayers, my condolences, my hope for quick recovery and for justice all go out for those in Waukesha and the support that law enforcement needs in order to be able to get the answers that we all want in that particular situation. It's my understanding that there may have been some concept of knowing information about them. So I'm not clear on the details of that part yet, but it's not without any information on how to get to the bottom of it. So I want to start there. And
the state that puts us in, right, across the nation, of these kind of acts, as well as active shooters and, just a lot of things that reflect, I would argue, a mental health state of people are very different in these times. And I do also give some of that to the pandemic, but just some of that to the great divide that exists in the nation. And I think that great divide is also reflected in the Rittenhouse case and the decision that ultimately came forth. Like CK said, I was not shocked. And I think from the original charges to the jury selection to the words that the defense attorneys used in the courtroom with no angst by anyone, the fact that they did motions and they could call the victims rioters, the fact that they could not call Kyle murderer, they could not say the things that are, factual in that sense. The fact that the motion for the gun charge was left open. I feel like that was a breadcrumb that many of us just, figured since they had won the motion, the judge said he might consider it later, but, just automatically assumed, it's not going to change anything. Clearly, it didn't seem like the prosecutor was prepared for later in the case when the judge did dismiss the gun charge. It was at that point that it seemed pretty clear to me that all criminal behavior was moving towards a way that would benefit Kyle. The fact that it felt like he had another defense attorney on the bench throughout the process, and the scolding of the prosecutor in the way that the judge just made the environment of Kyle not to feel intimidated, uncomfortable in the courtroom, all the way down to picking the alternative jurors. I'd be very curious, because they only said, a person of color, if that was a multi-race person, if that was a Black person, an Asian person, a Hispanic person. Very interesting to me it would be to know what that meant for the person on the jury. And then I'll end with the message that I believe that it sends to the United States, is that it's okay to make a decision to say you want to go somewhere to, quote unquote, do one thing, go and do a totally different thing, i.e. Kyle Rittenhouse said he went to help clean graffiti, then he went to, help secure so that property would not be damaged, didn't come with anything to clean graffiti, and wasn't there no different than in the Arbery case or the McMichael's case and the Bryant's case, where they killed and hunted down and killed Mr. Arbery. They did not, by any means have anybody asking them to protect their property, but they tried to use that defense, that same type of defense that Carl Rittenhouse did. I'm concerned about what this will mean for protests that continue to happen around the nation, and individuals feeling like they can come, they can carry, they can openly carry, especially in states where open carry like Wisconsin exists and can't get changed because of who's in control, meaning the Republicans are in control in the legislature and won't make that change. I'm concerned that the message is you can come and you can do that and you can lie and you can kill folks and you can maim folks. And that message makes me think of lynchings, makes me think of vigilantes coming and pulling African Americans out of their homes in years before. So that's the message I'm more concerned about. And how do we deal with that as a nation? Because that's also a glimpse of what happened on January 6th. Is that individuals felt that they were going to come and they were going to do what law enforcement should be doing, or for that matter, law enforcement didn't do what they needed to do in D.C. Necessarily, and they overturned, in many ways, law enforcement there. And so I'm concerned about that kind of behavior being okayed. And since then, people have been on the ground still protesting and marching Although I've been in the midst of the redistricting things and could not join Reverend Jackson and Bishop Grant yesterday, they did begin the process to demand that the Department of Justice review this matter. There have already been requests that have been put in that fashion. And then some of us who are looking at what law changes can happen, even though they may not be heard, but just to move those things forward for the message. Well, so that's where we are now. People are disgusted.
Well, it's very interesting. Dwight McKee, and of course that is Wisconsin State Senator Lena Taylor. She's running for Lieutenant Governor. GoLenaTaylor.com. GoLenaTaylor.com. In a Fox News interview, Dwight McKee, Kyle Rittenhouse, and we have to remember he's 18. I'm not excusing anything, but he is he's a kid. He's a kid. He is. So I'm just wondering, I'm trying to look at the people behind the scenes, who are moving him and shaping him. He said, quote, "I'm not a racist person. I support the BLM, Black Lives Matter movement. I support peacefully demonstrating. I believe there needs to be change. I believe there's a lot of prosecutorial misconduct, not just in my case, but in other cases. It's just amazing to see how much a prosecutor can take advantage of someone." Wow. Talk about flipping the script, Dwight McKee.
Well, I don't see him as a kid. At 18, you can go to war and shoot people legally.
Right, and I think they send kids to war, and I think it's wrong.
He looks like a kid, but he's 18 years old. He looks like that Opie look. I know it'd be hard to get past that Opie look. But, he's 18 years old.
But, let me say this before you continue. The reason I said that is because I know who I was at 18. And I know who people are at 18, whether they are aware of it or not. That's why even bringing kids into the military so young to train them to kill, that is problematic for me. I've got to tell you. And I support the troops and all of that and the veterans. I support all of that. I brought that up. I'm not fooled by any of this because, people can do heinous things as very young people. And that needs to be dealt with. But I want to know who are the people behind him, Dwight, because I also know that he is someone who's not living on his own. I want to hear about his mama. I want to hear about his father. I want to hear about Tucker Carlson's role in this documentary, and on and on and on. I want to know who is behind him too, Dwight.
Well, he's coached. And it's clear it's a lot of money behind it. It's clear that he was well rehearsed. And I must say I was personally shocked by the verdict.
Why?
Shocked by them. Because one, the case was so high profile. Secondly, that it was white people who got killed in the case. And thirdly, I didn't understand how the prosecution was so inept in this. It was clear that the judge was biased. It was clear that everything was stacked in behalf of Rittenhouse, but they still had a chance to win this thing. What I was surprised by is they never brought any family of those who got killed to light. I was surprised there were not more rabbis or other Jewish people in the courtroom because two of the guys were Jewish that got killed. I was surprised by they never humanitized the guys that got killed. They almost left them as if they were like miscellaneous people who were happened to be walking down the street that day and get involved. You never found out any of the characteristics and the personality of the people in the room.
I mean, that Mr. Rosenbaum had a fiance. I mean, these people had people who loved them. And I just saw a picture of families, the Rosenbaums, in the courtroom. I said, this is the first time I've seen these people, Dwight. Before I go to Reverend Urie. It's the first time I've seen them. And they looked absolutely devastated.
And you didn't know that there was his uncle in the court. I mean, they kept showing pictures of Cal's mother, quote unquote Cal, but they never showed pictures of the uncle of the guys that got killed or the family of the guys that got killed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess at that level, Sandy, maybe I miscalculated the virtues of some of these people who were involved in the jury pool. But it was just so evident that this was a contrived self-defense case, that common sense would have prevailed and they would have found this boy guilty of something. I guess it helps to really have the judge as part of your extended family and your extended defense in each trial.
It helps. Reverend Dr. Yeary, your thoughts. Were you surprised? Were you shocked?
The short version is no. I think Madam Chair C.K. Hoffler was spot on in terms of her assessment. Senator Taylor and I talked about the misdemeanor charge for the possession as being the one hope of kind of a strict liability crime. You wouldn't have to prove anything other than the fact that he was 17 at the time. However, and this is where you and I, Santita, have had conversations about why elections matter all the way up and down the ballot. My guess would be when that law was actually codified, there was a carve-out for interest that would allow a 17-year-old to be able to possess a long gun or a rifle, and that it would have certain dimensions. And it came down to the technical specs of the weapon itself that allowed the judge to determine that Kyle's possession of the weapon fell into the exception in the law where it no longer applied and the count had to be dismissed. Well, the reason that happens is that when these bills come up for hearing, those who have interest around the carve-outs and the exceptions either have representatives in the hearing room testifying on behalf of their perspective, or they show up themselves. And so it's not sufficient for us to bemoan a consequence that we could see coming. We now have to answer the question, so what? When the session convenes in the legislature in Wisconsin, what are the days? Who's going to be tracking the bills? What's the communication with the different caucuses that are allies to your interests that will tell you these are the bills you need to keep an eye on and be ready to testify on either in person or in writing? Because while you may not have the numbers to control how a bill is written, you do have enough influence to push back against insidious insertions that allow for these kinds of issues to come to bear. The other thing I would say before I get ready to run the court, judges do put their finger on the scale. Let's be very clear. And the one thing that has troubled me is that in all of the discussion that we often hear about black on black crime, I've heard no one mention white on white crime to any great degree where we begin to look at what does white behavior look like that adds to the culture of violence in the country and not just micromanage the assessment of what happens in poor communities and communities of color. And so this
absent white fathers, and
fathers,
dysfunctional white families.
Run the list, right? You can just go down to the, we know it, right?
Yeah.
But the question becomes, I think, ultimately for all of us, is that we can't allow silent signals, and this is a not so silent signal, to go unchecked. We've got to show up in the rooms where it happens between the elections and make sure that we're ready for every election when it comes up. Otherwise, we are signing up for another Rittenhouse episode to be continued somewhere in America.
Everybody, what do you think about the Rittenhouse verdict? We've been talking with Wisconsin State Senator and Lieutenant Gubernatorial candidate, Lena Taylor. Go, Lena Taylor. I mean, that is not just an exhortation. That is her website, GoLenaTaylor.com. GoLenaTaylor.com. We have got to look at these laws. We have got to look at what happened. What happened? Because you know what? Everything that happened was legal. But so was slavery at one time. So was the blocking of women from voting. A lot of things that were morally wrong have been legal. throughout history. So what do you think about this? What happened on Friday was perfectly legal. You saw that judge throwing things out, throwing charges out, tipping the scales, all of that. All of that was within his purview to do. But did any of us know Judge Bruce Schroeder? No. Did we know that what he did in this case, he has done in other cases, he's been doing throughout his career? I think we need to look at this and think about it, everybody. I'm going to be talking about Ahmaud Arbery, his case, his Ahmaud Arbery's case in the next segment as well. But I want to hear your thoughts about the acquittal, the full acquittal of Kyle Rittenhouse. And now you've got count them, three GOP congressmen who are vying to take him on as an intern on the Hill. Wow. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. 773-763-9278. Santita Jackson Show. Back in a minute. Lena, can you stay with me for a hot second?
Yes, I'm with you.
Okay, very good. It's just a lot, hun. And I came across that he supports the BLM. Bless his heart. Whatever that means.
You do know that his mother, you mentioned you wanted to hear more about his mother and his father.
Yes.
His mother was a domestic violence, a drug addict, a domestic violence victim who left Wisconsin to go to Illinois because his father had been a domestic abuser.
Yeah, no, I got that. And, and I'm not picking on anyone, right?
I'm not either. I'm just saying
no.
If she was black, she would have, if she had some other children underage, she'd be in Child Protective Services for taking her child over to Wisconsin with a gun.
Absolutely. And see, and my thing is the compassion that was shown to him, well, he wasn't shown compassion. They just wanted to get him off and excuse him. I want some compassion in this system for everybody. If you're going to lift him up and humanize him and try to understand him, they're not trying to understand him. They're just trying to give him a pass. They're not helping this boy. They're not helping him at all. You would help him if you showed him the error of his ways. You'd help him if you did that. That's not what you're doing, because I don't believe in throwing anybody away. Moses killed somebody.
All I have to say, is my child was taking a turkey, a frozen turkey, 6 houses away to a neighbor. He was stopped. He was screamed at by the police, demanded he stop. He stopped. They stopped. They frisked him. They threw his turkey down. They questioned him. He answered their questions. They asked him his name, his address, his number, his mama's name, and it threw him off. They said, "Lena Taylor?" And he said, "Yes." And then they asked him his number again. He said, "My number or my mother's number?" They said, "Your mother's number." And then they proceeded to put him in the back of a squad, lock him in, and heard him whimper, heard him ask, did he do something wrong? Nothing. Not an apology to this day. And they had the audacity to be giving away food that day. And Kyle Rittenhouse shot 2 people and wounded someone and came towards the police. And when I tell you, he was able to walk past them with an AR-15 strapped to him and wasn't treated like my son was when he had a frozen turkey in his own neighborhood. That's the reflection. That's the difference that has to be addressed. And that's the part that some people can't see. That's the lens
they still don't see it.
That they refuse to see.
They still don't see it. They still don't. I think that there's a greater recognition, because I heard one of the murder victims, one of the men who was killed by Kyle Rittenhouse. I heard him on CNN on Saturday morning, and he was obviously infuriated. I said, "We've not seen these families during this whole trial. You act like no one was killed here." And he said, "You know what? If Kyle Rittenhouse were black, we would have had a very different outcome." And he talked about the unfairness and the injustice in the system. I said, now, I wonder if he had seen this before. And I'm not slamming him, because you know what? Our circumstances, who we are, what we look like, how we identify, that shapes who we are. It really, really does. And it is hard to get up off of privilege, whatever it is. It's hard, everybody. It's hard. but it's something you really, really need to do. I mean, I think that's part of the Dwight the Moses story that is so compelling, that he left so much privilege just to be obedient to God. But we're talking about him thousands of years later, right? Wow. Whew. To think that these congressmen are fighting over the opportunity to give him an internship. You guys trying to get a congressional internship.
Sending Chappelle and Rep Myers through.
Thank you. From anyone from any place, it's so hard. Getting an internship in any of these government offices is hard. But you can't have a record and do it, and you certainly can't be on record having killed somebody. What? Hi, Chappelle.
Hey, Miss Santita.
State Representative Myers, how you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing well.
Well, we've got leadership here this morning. State Senator, Lieutenant Gubernatorial Candidate Lena Taylor. Go LenaTaylor.com. Go Lena Taylor. Go LenaTaylor.com. Go LenaTaylor.com. Go LenaTaylor.com. Everybody, there you go.
Santita.
Yes.
I want to remind you of Crystal Kaiser, who was 16
down in Texas
when she met Randy Zoller, her accuser.
Oh, right.
I mean, her abuser, and she was accused of murdering him for sex trafficking her.
Mm-hmm.
She got life in prison.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to know,
down in Tennessee, right?
Same area.
Down in Tennessee, young black girl.
No, this was in Wisconsin.
This was okay. So
in the same area that Kyle Rittenhouse got self-defense.
60 seconds.
Her self-defense didn't work.
Okay, now I'm sorry, hold on one second. Who do we have with us?
I'm going to say bye, but I heard Chappelle. Happy Thanksgiving, y'all. Hey, Chappelle. Bye. I got to go.
He wants some food, Chappelle.
Hey.
Okay, pitiful. Who do we have, Devin?
Was that Santita?
We have State Representative Myers. Do we have Attorney Jones?
Attorney Jones and Bishop Grant both kept going to voicemail. I'm going to give a call right after we get through headlines.
Thank you, hon. Thank you.
All right, 10 seconds.
Thank you.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Happy Thanksgiving week. Yes, we are just about here. We're going to be talking with Dr. Deborah Holden, leading right up into the holidays so you can be as safe as you can be. And we'll bring on Dr. Shanina Knighton as well. I'm Santita Jackson. It's a joy to be with you on November 22nd, 2021. Everybody, 58 years ago today, sadly, we lost President Kennedy, sending his family love and prayers today. All right, everybody. I want you to know you're listening to the largest progressive talk radio station in the nation, WCPT and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Call me, text me at 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. Let's talk about this Rittenhouse verdict. Let's get the latest on the Ahmaud Arbery deliberations. Of course, we'll hear closing arguments today, and then the jury will then go in and decide whether Mr. McMichael and Mr. Bryan are responsible for the death of Ahmaud Arbery, or if they were defending themselves with their guns and their cars, where they cornered him like a rat. So, everybody, Chicago, we're going to have a high of 35 degrees, sunny. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 33 degrees, 50, partly cloudy, and, well, in the NFL, the Bears fell to the Ravens. 16-13 in the last couple of minutes. Wow. The Vikings were triumphant, however, over the Packers, 34. Vikings, Packers, 31. What happened in the NBA? Well, the Bulls won over the Knicks, 109-103. The Timberwolves will be facing off against the Pelicans, but, we saw something that we don't really see, not normally. LeBron James was ejected from a game. He and LeBron James of the Lakers and one of the bad boys, at least that's what they used to be, the Pistons, Isaiah Stewart, it was a flagrant hard foul. Mr. Stewart was cut over his eye, and boy, all blankety blank broke loose. And so they were both ejected from the game, and God bless them, everybody. Whew, not comforting, very uncomfortable to see. In hockey, the Lightning, well, they were triumphant over the Wild 5-4, and Chicago, well, they won over the Canucks. Everybody. So we have got a whole lot going on. We're sending our love and prayers to the people of Waukesha, Wisconsin. 5 people killed, 40 people at least injured as an SUV plowed into the Christmas parade, everybody. 5 dead, more than 40 injured. And we're talking about the, many people didn't think it was possible, but it did happen. Kyle Rittenhouse was acquitted on all 5 charges, as he now asserts that he is a supporter of the BLM movement. He said, I support peacefully demonstrating. I believe there needs to be change. I believe there's a lot of prosecutorial misconduct, not just in my case, but in other cases. It's just amazing to see how much a prosecutor can take advantage of someone. He said, I'm not a racist person. I support the BLM movement. So there's that. 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. Okay, I got my order in with you, Chaparral. Oh, we can't place any more orders, not even just one little thing before Thanksgiving.
Yes, Santita, we are closed for Thanksgiving, but we are now accepting Christmas orders. So we cater all year round. So we have, the ability to take care of not only just the holiday season, but also your personal parties, as well as also just events when you just want good food. So please give us a call at 708-526-4546 and visit us at celebrationsbyus.org. You can still order throughout the year our famous banana pudding, peach cobbler, our caramel cakes, our smothered chicken, our smothered pork chops, our smothered beef, as well as also our masticholi, mac and cheese, whatever it is that you need for your holiday meal, give us a call and we'll be happy to take your order, 708-526-4546. Thanks so much, Santita.
Oh, bless your heart. Look, I got my order in. I sure did. I sure did. And I cannot wait. This is going to be great, everybody. 773-763-9278. We've got a tremendous panel talking about the Rittenhouse case. The Rittenhouse case. I want to know what your thoughts are. What are your thoughts? I have a lot of callers who are calling in, everybody. And you know what? So let me take, before I go to my wonderful panel, let me go to Rick from Oregon. Rick, what's on your mind today?
Oh, hi, Santita.
How are you?
I thought the verdict was wrong, and it really wasn't a case of self-defense. We all know that. You know what a true case of self-defense was? When the third person that was shot by Rittenhouse, who did have a gun, and he was an EMT trying to stop Rittenhouse. Now, if he had shot and killed Rittenhouse, that would have been a true case of self-defense. But, of course, we know what happened. The jury was intimidated. And then when MSNBC came out with that story of he was taking pictures of the jurists, what would you do if you had 500 National Guard and you had white supremacists that threatening you and attacking you if you come back with a guilty verdict? And then you have the story of MSNBC trying to take pictures of the jury members. What would you do on the jury? You're scared out of your wits. You're going to vote to acquit. It's just that simple.
Wow.
Are you there?
I'm listening to you. I'm taking everything that you're saying. I'm taking it all in.
This is exactly what really happened.
So it wasn't a clean process into your way of thinking.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. They threatened the jury. The judge did. Then when they called out 500 National Guard, and then this story about having their pictures taken, and then what would you do as a jury member? Possible, all these nutbag Republicans, right-wing wackos, are going to attack you if you come back with a verdict of guilty, and now your family is threatened. You are threatened. Heck, if I was on the jury, I'd have quit too. Who cares about a dumb little maggot named Kyle Rittenhouse?
Well, let's not call him a name.
When your life is in danger.
Right. I don't, but I hear you. I hear your emotion and I feel it.
That's the truth.
Yeah, I hear you, but I don't want to, you know what? I don't want to be called a name. And I guess maybe because I grew up with hearing people say all kinds of awful things about my own father and people I knew and loved. It's just a practice in which I do not engage, but I understand your passion. And we have to remember, Rick, as you are, I can hear it. 2 people were killed by Kyle Rittenhouse, 2 human beings with families, with people who loved them. Another person was seriously injured, Anthony Huber, Joseph Rosenbaum, and Gage Grosskreutz. Let us not forget that. We didn't see them. We saw no victim impact statements from the families. It was just absolutely shocking. And we're not hearing about any of the protests that are happening in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Before I come to Wisconsin State Senator Lena Taylor and Wisconsin State Representative Lakeisha Myers and Dwight McKee, who's with us, we've got Bishop T. Lane Grant, who is the National Field Director for Rainbow Push. You led a march yesterday. What's going on in Kenosha?
Well, tensions are high and passions are deep. We had a tremendous outpouring on yesterday in Kenosha, taking the feet of freedom across the city of Kenosha. You know, in your report, Kyle Rittenhouse is demonstrating some delusional behavior that continues. That night, he pretended to be a police officer. He was not. He pretended to be a paramedic. He was not. Pretended to be a fireman. He was not. You can't have it both ways. You cannot be a friend of the militia and support Black Lives Matter. Those two are polar opposites. And what is happening in Kenosha and around the country, as you've reported, people are turning their pain into power. You know, we did not have to accept the Emmett Till verdict, and we didn't. We didn't have to accept the Eric Gardner verdict, and we didn't. We didn't have to accept the Trayvon Martin verdict, and we didn't. And once again, we don't have to accept this verdict. There are additional remedies, but at the core of what we do right now, Santita, as you well know, is to use the tools that your father and Dr. King gave us: peace, protest, civil disobedience, and federal solutions. And so the fight goes on. We will not be intimidated. We will not be silent.
You know, it's interesting. Thank you so much, Bishop T. Lane Grant, for that report about the ongoing activities in Kenosha, Wisconsin. State Senator Lena Taylor running for Lieutenant Governor of the state of Wisconsin. It's as if now we have moved on, right? I mean, there's no discussion about lingering tensions in Kenosha. There's no, I mean, it's just, there's a rush to get past all of this. Will that work?
No. Individuals are very clear about the level of disparities that exist in Wisconsin, the disparities that exist in the judicial system. They are familiar with the challenges that exist in Kenosha, Racine area. I mean, there are families who have been spending all of their time showing the challenges that exist in the police department and how they handle things, the kind of things that the Arbery family have been able to bring out about the prosecutor, you know, in their community. Mr. Michael Bell has done to try to bring out the challenges in how law enforcement and the system handled things in the Kenosha area. So I don't anticipate that this is the end. This is not the only time that a verdict has happened this way in Wisconsin, and people wanted more. And that's where the federal government and that's where federal cases have come into play. That was true with the case where a gentleman was injured by the name of Frank Jude, and the individuals who beat him and nearly killed him and left him almost to die were individuals who were in law enforcement. They got off of their state charges in those situations. You know, if it was not for the federal coming in, the pastors doing what Bishop Grant did and Reverend Jackson yesterday in Kenosha with others, but they also did it among pastors across the board on an Easter Sunday. They delivered petitions asking the federal government to intervene in the case. Ultimately, that happened, and the convictions happened through federal court. So let us not forget that process still can happen, and let us not forget that there's also a civil process that can happen. Remember OJ. OJ was not convicted criminally, but civilly there were still things that were done. So it's not over. And people, to Bishop Grant's point, have an unsettling. And then there is a comparison case that has to be not only highlighted, but demand different justice for Crystal Kaiser, who was 16, used self-defense against her accuser and alleged sex trafficker. And she was found guilty. A jury couldn't see a young girl killing a white guy who was her abuser. Instead, she got life in prison. Instead, in that same community, she sits in that community. And so that is the disparity of Kyle walking down the street with an AR-15 compared to how he was treated after shooting 3 people, killing 2. How he was treated when the police came past him versus my son running 6 houses away to a neighbor with a brown paper bag and a frozen turkey. Those are the things that people know, feel, see, live, and are going to continue to press, especially with leadership like Rainbow Push and Bishop Grant and Reverend Jackson.
Well, you know, and that's why this young lady, she too was a child, was walking to the store with her 9-year-old cousin, and she saw George Floyd, and she told her cousin to go into the store. She knew this was not going to end well. I mean, this girl was not even 18. So these are lived experiences that people have, everybody, that incline us to a certain understanding of how things are going to roll out. State Representative Lakeisha Myers, were you surprised by the verdict?
Unfortunately not. Disappointed, yes. Not surprised. I think I go along with what Senator Taylor said and what, of course, Bishop Grant has already said, that the groundwork has already been laid, because Rainbow Push has been on the ground since the Jacob Blake situation last year, trying to support the family and making sure that they've been on the ground in Kenosha with residents and empowering residents to build coalitions and to protest and to continue to get things done. I think we have to move toward the federal level, because that's the only way that, you know, throughout history, we've been able to get certain levels of resolve. But I think this also shines a light on the judicial system at large, and it helps to harken back, you know, reality that while we as African Americans a lot of times, we realize these things, other communities sometimes have the luxury of forgetting or not participating in on a consistent basis. But I think it goes back to that concept of Rainbow Pushes. You have to build coalitions across the board and have people understand the issues and participate and not sit on the sidelines. This goes back to voting. When you think about how judges are selected, how the appointment process works for gubernatorial selections. Senator Taylor and I will be introducing legislation in Wisconsin to put an age limit on judges. You know, she may not even know. I talked to her staff about it while the case was going on. Like, this has to end. So I'm letting you know what we're doing later. So what we are doing. Because when you think about it, the judge in the Rittenhouse case will be 81 or 82 years old by the time his term ends on the bench. And so we've seen things that have happened in his courtroom, and he said it himself, I'm going to rethink having cameras in the courtroom because, I'm not able to do kind of some of the things that I want to do. And people have criticized him for some of the, picking of jury, all these kinds of things that he's done that have been totally unorthodox, but have probably happened for years in cases that were not as high profile as the Rittenhouse case. When you talk about jury selection, making sure, CK often talks about how quickly the jury was selected in the Rittenhouse case. I talked about how fast this case was tried because I've never seen a murder case that has taken a couple weeks. It just is virtually unheard of when you have people that are trial lawyers that do this for a living. They're like, this is really quick. So I had my doubts all along, but I think the work is continuing to go on the ground amongst the people. And that's where the power really lies. The power lies in people shaking up the system by asking the hard questions, continuing to press. We've seen this before, not just in the Racine-Kenosha area, but across Wisconsin. When you think about, all of the things that have gone on, which I'm sure happen in other communities as well, people asking questions about police settlements and how much we spend on those and who pays for that, trying to reform some of those things, making sure that, it wasn't just Eric Garner who said he couldn't breathe. It was Darrell Williams in Milwaukee who couldn't breathe. And that was in 2011. So making sure that you have all of these things in front of you and continuing to do the work in back of a squad car, yes. So making sure that you bring these things to light. Senator Taylor talked about Crystal Kaiser. Crystal Kaiser's case is almost, reminiscent of Centoya Brown in Tennessee.
In Tennessee.
And she stayed in prison for years, only to be let out maybe 2-3 years ago. So all of this, and we've seen cases like that before. And I can't remember the lady, I think it was like in the 70s. She ended up killing a police officer with an ice pick in prison because he tried to rape her.
Was it Joanne Little?
Joanne Little, that's who it was.
Thank you, Jet Magazine.
So thinking about, yes, absolutely. So making sure that you remember these names, I think it was Bishop Grant who talked about how we did not accept the image. And thank God for Keith Beauchamp, because after he made the documentary in 2005, they're still trying to prosecute the lady who's still alive in Mississippi that was the accuser. Because she's one of the only living people. She's still alive. She's still alive. And it's still, able to roam freely and should be prosecuted for lying on Emmett Till. So there are still...
Carolyn Bryant.
Carolyn Bryant. What Dr. King said, it's still bending. The moral arc is still bending. It's still bending towards justice. It seems like it takes a long, long, long time, and it's not something that I think will ever end. Even Mrs. King, Coretta Scott King, talked about the fact that civil rights and what we're fighting for, justice has to be fought with every generation. So we are not done. There's never going to be a time in which we are done because our country was built in such a way and with systemic racism in such a place that we will have to continue every generation. No generation is immune. We cannot sit on the sidelines. We have to use every tool that is available to us. This is a lifestyle that you have to live. Participation is part of it.
And when we come back, we got Attorney Darrell Jones from the Transformative Justice Coalition. And I want to hear from him because I know I have him repeat these details all the time because I think that as you, State Senator Lena Taylor, and State Representative Lakeisha Myers and Dwight McKee and Bishop T. Lane Grant, as you talk about people, I don't think we really understand what a tremendous family Ahmaud Arbery comes from. It was his father who pushed for this. As we talk about absentee black fathers and all that black fathers ain't doing, that is not true. The CDC showed that the most responsible and responsive father in the United States is from birth to the age of 5 is a black father. Well, this father made it his business to find out what happened to his son, to his baby. And that is a large part of the reason that we are here. But the prosecutorial misconduct having the police stand down. I want Attorney Darrell Jones, the chair of the Transformative Justice Coalition, to walk us back through this. Because this is what we saw in the Kyle Rittenhouse case when we looked at Judge Schroeder. He's been able to do this. Judge Schroeder's been able to do this, conduct his courtroom like this for years. But now we just got a chance to see the sausage made. So everybody, I want you to call me at 773 Andre. I'm going to get to you all the callers 773-763-9278. Call me or text me at 773-763-9278. WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and the voice of progressive Minnesota, AM 950 radio. The Santita Jackson Show, back in just a moment. Attorney Jones? Darrell?
Good morning, Santita.
Well, they set you up perfectly. Everybody's completely. No, it's just, you know what, we're seeing all of this, the rot in the system. And I think this is an opportunity for us to root it out. But just, can you imagine? I don't know if Judge Schroeder's ever had cameras in his courtroom before. This has been standard operating procedure for him not to call people who get shot, killed. They're a decedent. They're not a victim. What? What? What, a complaining witness? You shoot me?
100% on point.
What is that?
Santita, this is Bishop Grant.
Yes, Bishop Grant.
Reverend and myself hope to.
Can you come a little closer into the phone? Are you on the speaker?
No, can you hear me now?
Okay, a little clear.
Your father and I hope to visit Crystal Kaiser by the end of the month.
Okay.
So we're taking that on head on. That case has tremendous value to the overall context of the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict.
Oh, my goodness. Well, the thing is, there are so many of these cases, just, which is why we all have to get involved. This is awful. This is awful, awful, awful. You all keep talking. I'm looking for something right now.
That reminds me of Barbara saying how people are coming up just explaining their cases to her because there are so many examples of injustice that the prosecutor did. There are so many other injustices that exist for individuals. In Wisconsin, I mentioned I'd love to see the judges' decisions on gun cases and see how many people of color got their gun charge dismissed because it didn't fit the parameters.
Exactly. Yeah. And then when you look at
Representative Myers, you may not know, but we're doing legislation to close the loophole.
No, I know about that too. I'm on that too.
I love it. We'll have to get you all back on here to talk about gerrymandering. Because in the midst of all of this,
it's Representative Sylvia Ortiz with us.
Okay.
It's been amazing to champion this with, I call it my squad in Wisconsin. 4 colored girls, 2 Latinas, and 2 African Americans that are fighting for us to have districts so that we can choose candidates of our choosing.
Well, let's get to it. Because we've been talking to people just all over the country, because this is a real issue all over the United States.
Oh, yes, in Illinois.
Oh, absolutely.
Right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Illinois, Michigan, Missouri. There have been several cases that have come out, with
60 seconds.
Transition Opportunity District.
Stand by. Dwight, you still there?
Still there.
Okay, very good. Oh, boy. We'll grab a couple of calls very quickly, then I'm coming to Attorney Jones. Whew. Okay. Wow.
10 seconds.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. Yes, we can change the world. We can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show, joined by Attorney Daryl Jones, of course, and Wisconsin State Representative Lakeisha Myers, Lieutenant Governor candidate of the great state of Wisconsin. That is State Senator Lena Taylor. Go LenaTaylor.com. Dwight McKee, brilliant social scientist and sociologist. We have Attorney Daryl Jones, chair of the Transformative Justice Coalition. Before we come to you, Attorney Jones, let me just get one or two of these callers. And James from Chicago, what's on your mind, James?
A whole lot.
Okay.
I admire your knowledge and your courage. I want people to listen to this very carefully. If you can write it down, write it down. The process of understanding or perceiving a common evil has put many people into a situation of the utmost danger. That simply means the masses of human beings that were exterminated in the past, they never saw extermination coming. That's where the so-called black people are today. The table is being set for our extermination. Now, regular human beings cannot go and exterminate other human beings without government. You must have government behind you if you're going to exterminate people. That's why government is behind these psychopaths today. They are laying down. They are letting them do what they want to do. They are creating an atmosphere of terror and chaos. And you know it, because in an atmosphere like that, Santita, people can be slaughtered. That's what we are seeing today.
And you're saying that this is happening with government sanction and protection. Yeah. Okay, all right.
Yeah, we're seeing it today.
Okay, James.
And I appeal.
Yes, very quickly, James.
I appeal to the good Germans. I appeal to the good Italians. I appeal to the good Caucasians. Do not go along with what these psychopaths have planned to exterminate so-called black people. When will this madness end, Santita? Will it ever end? What are we dealing with here? Just keep on exterminate humans. Who are these people?
Well, Attorney Daryl Jones, you hear the passion, you hear the pain, you hear the passion. It seems that with this Kyle Rittenhouse verdict, it seems that it's a dog whistle to vigilantes to take people out who are peacefully protesting. And you see, that's why I said, I'm looking at Kyle because, I don't like what he did. I think what he did was a sin. It was a sin. And I think he's been failed. His parents have failed him. His community have failed him. So many people, Fox News has failed him. Everybody's failed him. They've not corrected him because they don't think he's done anything wrong. And that is, to me, the ultimate tragedy. It speaks to a rot in the culture. Where's his father? What role did his mother play in all of this? How was he parented? All of these are questions that no one wants to ask. But if he were a black child, you would have his father on the rack. He's not present. You'd have his mother on the rack. Well, she had problems, and so she couldn't really manage him. That's what we'd be talking about right now. But we've put a fresh suit on him, and you've got 3 congressmen at least vying to make him an intern on Capitol Hill. The top students in the United States get those slots, and they work, and most of them are rejected for them. Are you kidding me? But, we've got the Ahmaud Arbery case. The closing arguments will be made today. I want to go back, though, for a hot second, because I want to continue to take your calls, because you could hear Mr. James and his pain and his angst. I don't think we really understand all that the Arbery's had to go through, Attorney Jones, to get this case heard, because his father, who is a trucker, came off the road and said, I'm going to find out what happened to my baby. I want to find out what happened to my son. And oh my goodness, all the things that he pulled back. Attorney Darrell Jones.
Good morning, Santita. Again, thank you for having me on and for lifting up what has happened in Brunswick, Georgia, with Ahmaud Arbery and his killing at the hands of the McMichaels and William Roddy Bryan. You know, one of the things that I tell people right now with regards to Kenosha, as well as with regards to Brunswick, is this: simply reverse the roles of Rittenhouse and Ahmaud Arbery. Let Ahmaud Arbery be the one in Kenosha walking down the street carrying that that gun and seeing police and killing someone. Let Kyle Rittenhouse be the one that was in Brunswick, only he's being chased by 3 black men and gunned down and killed. I think that the results in both cases would be extremely different. So when we start dealing with the role of the prosecutor and law enforcement and the criminal justice system and what's happening in the Brunswick case and the Ahmaud Arbery killing, here's what we do know. We do know that Jacqueline Johnson was the state's attorney that was elected and was up for re-election in 2020 when this occurs. We know as well that Gregory McMichael, who was one of the men involved in the trapping, cornering and killing of Ahmaud Arbery, had been a member of the Glenn County Police Department for nearly 30 years. We also know that Gregory McMichael worked under Jacqueline Johnson as an investigator for the Glenn County Police Department. So at the time that this offense occurs against Ahmaud, we know that his father, Marcus Arbery, as you've indicated, was an over-the-road trucker. And he had been down in Florida making a delivery and working. And that's when he received the word of Ahmaud being killed. His brother, Gary, called him to let him know that something was wrong with Maud, as they call him, or Quez. And he didn't want to tell him what it was because he had to drive back the 5 or 6 hours by himself to come back to Brunswick. And so finally, Gary told Marcus that, that Quez was hurt and that he was killed. And he couldn't believe it. And he asked him, how did it happen? And Gary did not want to tell him any other information because he didn't know very much information. So Marcus Arbery then travels back by himself those 5 or 6 hours from Florida to Brunswick, Georgia, to find out what has happened to his youngest son. Once he returns to Brunswick, Georgia, he goes to the police department, and they will not give him any information. The information they give him is that Ahmaud was breaking into a house, was burglarizing a house, and was killed inside the house. Nothing could have been further from the truth. He wasn't killed inside the house. So Marcus, the father, does his investigation. He said, well, show me where the body was. And his body wasn't in the house, but in the streets of Santilla Shores, which is middle white community, primarily white community, in just outside of Brunswick. When they go to the spot where Ahmaud was killed, it was in the streets. It wasn't in the house. Line number 1. Line number 2, there was still a pool of blood, of Ahmaud's blood, that laid in the streets. Santita, I want to be certain that the listeners are clear on what's happening here. What's happening here is that Travis McMichael, who is the son of Gregory McMichael, took his 12-gauge shotgun, and once they trapped Ahmaud, and he had nowhere to go. The expression they gave police was he was trapped like a rat. Once they had him trapped, Travis McMichael pulls out his 12-gauge shotgun, a shotgun that can be used to kill elephants, pulls out the shotgun, shoots Ahmaud at point-blank distance. Understand me, Santita, blows a hole in his chest. I mean, we were in the courtroom to look at the pictures. You could see through his chest. There were entry wounds and exit wounds that happened to Ahmaud Arbery. There was massive bleeding that occurred from this shot, to the point, and because it was so close, it was all over Travis McMichael. The blood was all over him because of the type of gun that was used, because of the closeness of the usage of the gun. As I indicated, and there was still blood that was flowing in the streets by the time that the father got there, to the point that his sister could dip her white T-shirt into the blood that was in the street, and it was Ahmaud's blood that was still there. So that's what you were dealing with. It was with this backdrop that Gregory McMichael then notifies Jacqueline Johnson that he needs some help because they just killed somebody. Calls her up. We just killed somebody. I need some help. Jacqueline Johnson directs the Glenn County Police Department, that police department that Gregory McMichael used to be a part of, to stand down, to not make an arrest of them. Do not arrest them. They don't arrest the three people that just killed this unarmed black guy that was just out running. He wasn't. Was he trying to get away? Absolutely, he's trying to get away because you had three white folks out in rural Georgia chasing you.
No. Stop. They were trying to defend themselves, right?
Yeah, right. Okay, right. I guess you got to come up with some type of argument.
I'm trying to keep it straight because isn't that what they are saying in court, that they were defending themselves?
That's what they're trying. Right. And the interesting part, Santita, is that when they're saying they're defending themselves, they say they're defending themselves because Ahmaud tried to grab the shotgun that Travis McMichael used to kill him. It's one thing when you bring the gun. They introduced the two guns into the whole thing. Ahmaud's trying to get the hell away from them. He's trying to get away from them. He's trying to leave the community. They trap him. He's on his way out. They block him from leaving. So this is what's going on. So I don't believe you get a claim of self-defense when someone's trying to get away from you. And by the way, on the stand, Travis McMichael admitted that he knew of no crime that Ahmaud had committed that he had seen. He had no knowledge of any crime that had occurred. So we then have all of this occurs. We have Jacqueline Johnson telling the Glenn County Police to stand down, don't make an arrest. Allows them to go home. And what does Travis McMichael do when he goes home? She tells him to go wash up. Get the blood off of you. Get the gunshot residue off of you. And the filming that occurred, which was by William Roddy Bryant, the police get that film. They give it to Jacqueline Johnson. She sits on it. She's not going to release it. There's no arrest. Even though they have all of this evidence, they make no arrest. So what Marcus Arbery, the father, then does is from the 23rd of February, which is the date that Ahmaud was killed, from the 23rd, every day, he goes down to the courthouse where the state's attorney is located, demanding to know what has happened to his youngest son. And Jacqueline Johnson refuses to provide any information. She tells him at one point, "Don't worry, Mr. Arbery, I got your back. I'm going to take care of you." And continues to stonewall him to the point that after, we're not certain how long it took, but it was, over, 20, 30 days of him going down there, that finally he and his brothers go down together and transfer all the property to the wives because they don't know what's going to happen when they go down. But this is it. This is what their determination is. We want to know what happened to Ahmaud. And it was when they went down there this time that everyone down there understood that they meant business, that this was it. They weren't having it anymore. This is the type of father that Marcus was to his youngest son, to all of his children, but to Ahmaud particularly. It was with that Jacqueline Johnson then releases the video that all the world then sees. This is the next step, though, Santita, because it doesn't stop there. The cover-up goes even worse. What she then does is she says that she recognizes that she has a conflict of interest. And so she brings in another prosecutor from a neighboring county to prosecute the case. Sounds going on its face is what she probably should have done in the beginning. But here's the problem. She gives it to a prosecutor that used to work for her in her office. And this prosecutor doesn't convene a grand jury to study all the evidence that's been given to him, doesn't spend any time with it. He looks at it, he says, this was a justifiable shooting. We're not going to do anything. We're not going to charge them, which is consistent with what Jacqueline Johnson was doing in Glenn County in Brunswick and not charging them and not doing anything. If you look and listen to the testimony of the case, you'll hear that there's this 74-day break of information, that nothing seems to happen in the case for 74 days. That's because that was all the messing around that Jacqueline Johnson was doing and trying to keep this from being charged. So when the second prosecutor doesn't do anything and the community outrage nationally picks up, it's the Georgia Bureau of Investigations that gets involved, picks up this case, and within a matter of days, they charge these three men with the murder of Ahmaud. But it doesn't stop there, because now not only does Travis McMichael, Gregory McMichael, and William Roddy Bryant have the charge of murder in the Glenn County Superior Court, but they also have a federal hate crime that will begin this February in Glenn County. In addition to that, Jacqueline Johnson now has been indicted for her actions in this case. She's been indicted for the obstruction of justice and for the dereliction of her duty while she was the state's attorney that was sworn in to protect the citizens of Glenn County, while turning her back, worse than turning her back, on Ahmaud Arbery and his family, but really just trying to cover it all up to set these people free. So this is what's happening down there. This is the reason why when I hear about people keeping vigilant and watching and doing the court watch, this is why that's important. We know as well, and I apologize for continuing to go on, Santita, but we know as well, this Arbery family, they're just a tremendous family. Jacqueline Johnson, as I indicated, was in the middle of her election. She was beyond the period at that point as state's attorney where anyone could file to run against her. The Ahmaud Arbery family, Marcus Arbery and his brothers and sisters and others in the community, saw what was going on with Ahmaud. They went and petitioned to get somebody else to run against her, to get on the ballot, to be able to run in that race for state's attorney. They were able to successfully get all of the signatures that were necessary to get somebody else on that ballot. And for the first time in Glenn County's history, an incoming state's attorney was defeated in that election because of the actions of the Arbery family. Ruby Arbery is the youngest of the aunts of Ahmaud Arbery. She tells the story that she had never voted in an election in her 54 years of living because she didn't think it really meant anything. After what happened to Quez, as she calls them, as they call Ahmaud, after what happened to Quez, she says she had vowed, and after she saw what Jackie Johnson had done, she got her children together. Mm-hmm. She got everybody together that she knew and said, we will never miss another election. That's the type of power that the Arbery family had, the type of dedication and focus that they had to try to make something good out of this.
And it takes that kind of activism. Of course, we see Chaparral Wells. We hear a lot from Chaparral. Chaparral's son was killed under very mysterious, mischievous circumstances, and it has been her dogged pursuit of justice for her son that now she has a podcast. They've had more than 1.5 million downloads. She has had to push and push and push. And you have to push and push and push, but you got to get registered to vote, everybody. You got to get on these juries. You have to get involved. You have to, and we need more courts. We need more cameras in these courtrooms, and you need to observe these trials because you need to know what the judges are doing, what the prosecutors are doing, what the defense are doing. You need to understand, and you need to understand the people behind Kyle Rittenhouse. You need to understand all of the rot here. That's why I wanted Attorney Jones on here again. You're going to hear him again and again coming on to describe what happened with Ahmaud Arbery. It wasn't just this young man, this barely a young man, being blown away as he was jogging. There is a whole culture and a system of rot that has been legalized and that has been weaponized against people. Shame, shame, shame. And it's not just black people. Think about the Rosenbaum family. Think about the Huber family today. Their hearts are broken. Broken. And yet this boy is walking away. This young man is walking away, Dwight. I got a couple of minutes for you, Dwight. What have you heard? I mean, we don't hear enough about what happened with Ahmaud Arbery's case, Dwight. I mean, all that background information, don't you think that's important?
Oh, absolutely. And that's why I said today that we work so hard to to turn Cal into a person, into a living person with a background and who was doing good and was painting and helping the sick and the poor and feeding 5,000 with loaves of bread. I mean, they really worked hard to monetize him, whereas these other people were just statistics, pictures on the page. And same thing that's happening down in Georgia. Is that they are making these guys, trying to make them into neighborhood watch, the heroes, and taking them out of the vigilante role where they were really stalking, like they were going hunting or doing this season or bad season. They were stalking this young man. They're trying to turn him into the neighborhood watch in the police department, and putting a face on the fact that they killed this guy, that the neighbors testify that they had been afraid and that they were protecting their children. And 3 years ago, some people walked through the neighborhood and were fighting their children. And so now these white people are coming to the rescue. It's tricks of the trade. And we have to be very, very careful as they seek to rehabilitate these people. Once they become free, like Cal, they rehabilitate them and they become heroes.
But he is going on Capitol. He has an opportunity to be an intern on Capitol Hill. Hold on, because Howard, Howard, very quickly, your thought on the verdict. I got about a minute.
Thank you for taking my call. I like to say that I didn't realize that someone was trying to take a picture of the jury. That's not right. I heard they were trying to take the picture of the bus they were riding in. So in the bus, I know here in Los Angeles, we have a sheriff bus where the windows are blacked out where you can't see the passengers. They should have been that kind of bus. Also, I thought on the Arbery trial, the same thing was going to happen because you got one juror. I know they intimidated the juror. I was on jury duty. I know what it's all about back in the jury room. Don't tell them what's going on back in the jury room. And I expect the same type of verdict with the Arbery trial. So that's my thoughts. Thank you for taking my call.
No, that's a whole lot. I want everyone to stay with me for a few more minutes on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel and on Santita Jackson and Friends on Facebook, because I want to get some closing thoughts from our guest, State Senator Lena Taylor. I have about a minute and a half before we go off the air. You just heard, this background, this incredible background on the Arbery case. There's still so much that we do not know about what happened with Kyle Rittenhouse's case. I mean, it's like no one even mentions that it has been alleged that his mother drove him across state lines to Kenosha. Is that true? Has that been confirmed, State Senator?
That was confirmed.
Wow.
That was confirmed. He did drive him across state lines. I think a piece that's missed that I think is also appropriate, since we were talking about a profile of fatherhood, is that his father was a domestic abuser and in Wisconsin. So it wasn't as if he completely went somewhere that was, quote unquote, unknown, so to say. When you have parents that are no longer together, those are realities, that you can have. I mean, my son is a Chicagoan because his father is, and Milwaukeean because his mama is, and has been in both places. So I can see that concept. But you didn't see his father engaged like you've heard about Mr. Arbery. And more importantly, the profile of fatherhood as a family man and a mother who has been there and been present. Kyle's mother, although of her issues, have been present too. So we do know her to have gotten a pass because a black mother would have been assaulted for bringing her son to be involved.
And for having a child irresponsibly because the man's not there. How about that? Whew. There's a whole lot, everybody. Stay right here. I'm going to get some closing thoughts from this magnificent panel on the Santita Jackson YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Thank you, Bedalia, for setting that up. And, of course, the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. And you all have responded so overwhelmingly to this photograph that I have of me and Reverend Jackson, my father. And bless your hearts, everyone is wishing him well with his health. And as you can see, God has restored his health, and he keeps on moving on his way up to Wisconsin this week, looking into those cases. State Representative Lakeisha Myers from Wisconsin, Lieutenant gubernatorial candidate. See, I'm already putting you in the governor's mansion. Wisconsin State Senator Lena Taylor. Go LenaTaylor.com. Of course, you, Attorney Darrell Jones, you and Attorney Barbara Arnwine just do magnificent work. It's been lonely work, but you know what? We just thank God for you and the Transformative Justice Coalition. Of course, you are the chair. And Dwight McKee, brilliant social scientist, sociologist, one of the founding members of Operation Push, actually. And so I want to thank everybody. Thank you, Devin, for a great show. Thank all of you. Stay right here. We're going to get some closing thoughts from this magnificent panel about the Rittenhouse verdict and what should we expect with the Ahmaud Arbery closing arguments today? Could they get off with self-defense too? Don't put anything past anybody. Back and see you tomorrow. Attorney Jones. Is Attorney Jones there?
Says he's there.
Okay. Attorney Jones?
Be right back.
Okay, I can't hear anybody.
Good morning, Santita.
Oh, let me ask you this. Do you think that would they be, well, thank you. And everyone, I want to get closing thoughts from you. Do you think a lot of people are shocked that this self-defense claim really worked in the Rittenhouse case? Could it work in the Arbery case?
There is a potential that it could work. It's one of the things. I'm a criminal defense attorney by training, and I've been a prosecutor as well. And one of the things that every attorney knows, you never know what a jury's going to do. And a lot of folks, there's a lot of information that's been presented in this case, particularly with the Arbery case. We know that that Ahmaud was fighting for his life at the end. He grabbed the shotgun because they won't kill him. So he's trying to do whatever he can to protect himself. And what the defense is trying to do now is that they're trying to say that when Ahmaud was grabbing at the shotgun to try to stop them from shooting him, that they were concerned that he was going to grab that shotgun and turn around and use it on them. That's the defense that they're trying to say. In addition to that, Travis McMichael indicated in his testimony that Ahmaud Arbery had struck him in the face.
But you know what the presumption is there, Attorney Jones? Ahmaud was supposed to value their lives over his own. That's how sick this is. He's not supposed to defend himself. And if he grabs a gun and it comes down to me getting shot or you getting shot, well, of course, you're supposed to the white guy's not supposed to get shot. You get shot. What?
Right.
I mean, and I'm into nonviolence. This is crazy.
Right. But understand what the defense is doing in this case.
Please.
Because what they've done is that they have a predominantly white female jury. And so they're trying to play up this role of the white man protecting the white women from this black man.
Hold on a second.
These white women neighbors coming up to testify.
But that's precisely why I asked you this question, because that's what we had for the Kyle Rittenhouse case, right? We had a majority white woman jury, 5-7. Same thing.
Same role.
C.K. Hoffler, Attorney C.K. Hoffler says, don't be fooled. Intimidation happens at home. Some of these women, some of these folks are going home and they're being threatened or they're being beaten if they do not vote a particular way. And if you looked at all of those, if you looked at those neighbors, the neighborhood where the neighborhood where Ahmaud Arbery was killed, they didn't sound like they were very sympathetic to Ahmaud.
No. No. And let me tell you this, Santita, when you say that, it reminded me of something. You know, we went over to Santita Shores and to Holmes Road where Ahmaud was killed, and we didn't know the exact area. This was, months before the trial that we were over there because we wanted to see where things happened to try to piece it together in our minds. And there was a white woman that was standing out in her yard, doing her flowers or whatever. And we asked her, can you show us where Ahmaud Arbery was killed, where the incident occurred? And she was, maybe in her 50s or 60s or so. And she indicated that she didn't know what we were talking about. She had no idea about any killing or anything. She had no idea. It turned out it was directly across the street from her house. So when you talk about that community and the members from the community and the white women in that community not wanting to have any type of feelings toward Ahmaud, not being struck by, the killing of this young guy, that's precisely what's on this jury. And that's what concerns me. The other part of what concerns me is this. As a criminal defense attorney, Kevin Goff, I think, is despicable. Don't get me wrong. He's despicable. But he knows his community.
Yes.
He knows what will register with this jury.
Yes.
And that concerns me that he's doing all these, flares about, the black ministers, the black ministers being in the courtroom trying to intimidate the jury. I'm wondering, and it concerns me because, as you said,
he's telegraphing.
These have to return home.
He's telegraphing.
There you go.
He's on the camera. He's not just speaking to the jury. He's speaking to the broader community, not just Wayne County. He's speaking to America. Mm-hmm. That is what he's doing. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think we've got to pay attention to all of these pieces. That's why I know I'm bringing you on, and I know you and Attorney Armand have a lot to do, but it's an audience. And I want people to hear and say right there, State Senator Taylor, are you still there?
I am.
Is it important? You heard the details of the Arbery case. Do you think it's important for us to know those details?
I think it is important for us to know those details. I think that those things are important, and they, will come out, of course, in some of the other cases as they are tried. But I think it also says to the willingness, because although the prosecutor is on trial, somebody had to, for lack of a better way to say it, obey when the suggestions were put forth. There's a squad of women, colored women, I like to say, 4 colored girls that have been able to do a fight for black representation and brown representation and Asian representation in Wisconsin. And one of them says, well, if we're told to jump off a bridge or jump in a lake, I'm not jumping. She told people to hold back on their responsibility and their oath that they take as an officer, as law enforcement, and they chose to. Those are the people and the makeup of the people who make up the community that the jurors were pulled from. Those are the people that jurors go home to. Those are the people that lay next to them. Those are the people that worship with them. Those are the people that work with them. That is the mindset of the pool that you're working from. So all that matters, because the depth that they were willing to cover up what people knew was wrong, or they wouldn't have to cover it up. When you broke your mama's lamp and she was at work, and you glued it together and you turned it to the back. When you turned it to the back, it was because you knew that if she saw it, she would know something was wrong. You were covering it up. So more than one person in the house, you had to all be willing to participate, be a party to the crime. His mother was not seen or portrayed like that, but if she was a black mother, she would have been. So all of that matters. The whole story sets the picture. I wish that Representative Myers had not had the leave to go to a Zoom call, because I'm certain that she too would talk about how that is even true. Like, your environment is true even in a classroom as an educator. So when you're in the courtroom, you just painting a story. You laying a picture
for individuals that see things a certain way in a community that they're in. So, yeah, it matters.
Hey, I'm just asking. Dwight McKee, your thoughts?
I think everybody is absolutely correct. You're dealing with a mindset, you're dealing with a culture, you're dealing with a community who've had hundreds of years to indoctrinate themselves into this mindset is that first white is right, and you have to prove that white's not right. And the burden of proof is so excessive that we almost have no chance to win. I think we probably, and I say this very cautiously, because of the prosecution was so superb, I think that we'll probably win the Georgia case. But my hopes for the case in Wisconsin is the feds come in and convict him of different charges, and civil charges prevail.
Well, you know what? I think they're also, Dwight, I think they're feeling political pressure too. I think that's why it was important for Attorney Jones to tell us about all that the Arbery family did to oust this prosecutor. Don't you think?
Absolutely. But I also think that whenever we put our guards down, that we run the risk of getting knocked out. We have to fight every day of our lives, get up fighting, have a lunch, take a break, and start fighting again, go to bed fighting. We have to fight every step of the way. I have so much respect for your father because at 80, on one leg, he's still fighting. And this is an example for our young people that this generation, their generation, has to pick up this fight because we're in a fight for our lives.
Mm-hmm. And, but I'm wondering, Dwight and Attorney Darrell Jones, I'm wondering if we really, really understand that. I mean, my father, people do, when you see him now, you see that he has mobility issues and speech is becoming more of a struggle. But his mind is still there and his will is still there. And he's pushing. I didn't think it was possible for him to push harder, but he has to push harder because physically he has so many challenges. But those to him are that's just one more challenge. I've got to get out here and lead this march. I've got to get over and see this family. I've got to be in this courtroom. I've got to, because that's the nature of this fight, Attorney Jones. That's the nature of it. I mean, you and Barbara Arnwine went down there by yourselves. I mean, by yourselves. And you went into that neighborhood. And those neighborhoods, you don't feel comfortable when you go into those neighborhoods, the one where they killed him. You don't feel comfortable. And people come out of their homes and look at your blackness riding through that neighborhood, and they want to know what you're doing there. Oh, I've been through it. And that's in the 2000s, the 2010s, the 2020s. I love America. It's my country. I know where we're crazy now. And I know what I can and cannot do safely, for the most part. So I want to get some closing thoughts. State Senator Lena Taylor, are you still there?
I am. And it's so funny. You said you know what you can do safely.
For the most part.
I tell you, the whole process of what's been happening surely makes you think differently. It makes me think when Barbara said that people were calling in saying, don't protest, don't go to no protest, we have to stand up. I just, will never forget that Harriet Tubman said that she freed 1,000 slaves and she could have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves. And I just know that we cannot be content. So, you may have mobility issues, and those mobility issues may be physical, or they may be some of the things that Reverend Jackson, that Santita just spoke about. But yours might be in your mind. Your fear has made you immobile.
Yes.
Then you need to give to organizations like Rainbow Push. You need to give to organizations like Transformative Justice. You need to give to people like myself so that we are at the table to prevent whatever your issue may be. Today we're talking about this, but your issue might be agriculture. Your issue might be business. Your issue might be other things. You want to have government that allows you at the table so you are not just on the menu. Go to GoLenaTaylor.com and support me in the fight.
Attorney Darrell Jones, are you still there?
It's just Senator and Dwight McKee.
Dwight McKee, what's your final thought? What is our takeaway today? And I want to thank you because you all have given us such great information. Whew.
Our takeaway today is to be ever vigilant and to stay in the tradition of our ancestors. Look, it said 150 years ago that power gives nothing unless it's taken. It makes no concessions. You really have to take it. And for us to be able to, what was true for him 150 years ago is true for us today. Is that nobody's going to give us anything, including justice, including freedom, unless we fight.
Amen to that. These things are not given to you. You have to take them. Everybody, be very, very clear on that. Dwight McKee, State Senator Lena Taylor, everybody go LenaTaylor.com. Go LenaTaylor.com. You know, he's going, Paula, Reverend is going despite Parkinson's, and he's going because of Parkinson's. You got to, God's always going to give you something, okay? But you got to keep on pushing, no matter what. You can't stop. You can't stop. You can't stop. Don't stop. You can't do that. You can't stop. And we who believe in freedom, as the song says, cannot rest. We will not rest. And you better not. And while it's hitting Black people, while it hits Indigenous people first, while it hits all of us first, we're the canaries in the mine. Now you have 2 white men who were killed. Pay attention. Pay attention. Pay attention. I heard Reverend Sharpton say, Dwight, bullets don't have a name on them. They just got it. Somebody has to aim them. So you have to understand that. Understand that. Now, some white men, and Joseph Rosenbaum was not even participating in the demonstration. That's not what he was there for. But they got killed. Think about that. Think about that. Dwight, I think that's why you said, I think I'm going to hedge my bets with this jury, but these folks were not going to send that boy to jail, to prison. They were not going to do it. They weren't going to do it. And when he cried on the stand, it was a wrap. Everybody, it's too much. But you know what? It's a great time to be alive because we are watching the sausage being made, and it's never pleasant. But we're learning a lot. We're learning a lot. And you know what? We have an opportunity to heal our land. We do. We do. We have an opportunity. Let's get to it. I love you, everybody. See you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show.